Commander Raven Walsh cursed as her scout ship's engines sputtered and died, the sleek vessel plummeting through the atmosphere of Kepler 186. The reconnaissance mission had gone sideways the moment our sensors detected an unknown energy signature. Now, as the ship spiraled toward the planet's surface, she could only hope her training would keep her alive. The impact came hard and fast. Metal screamed against stone as the ship carved a deep furrow through the planet's crimson soil. When the vessel finally stopped, Raven hung upside down in her harness, blood trickling from a cut above her eye. The cockpit's emergency lights pulsed an angry red, matching the alien sunset visible through the cracked viewport. "Status report," she commanded, her voice hoarse. The ship's AA responded with static before falling silent. Perfect. Stranded on an unexplored world with no way to contact Earth Fleet Command. Raven released her harness, dropping to the ceiling-turned floor with practiced grace. Her powered armor had protected her from the worst of the crash, but the suit's energy levels were critically low. She had maybe 6 hours of life support remaining. The planet's atmosphere read as breathable, though the higher oxygen content would take some getting used to. Through the viewport, she saw a landscape that seemed pulled from a fever dream. Towering crystal formations jutted from the ground like ancient teeth, while bioluminescent vegetation cast an ethereal blue glow across the terrain. Something moved in the crystal forest. Raven's hand instinctively went to her pulse rifle as she activated her suit's thermal imaging. The figure that emerged from behind the crystals was humanoid, but definitely not human. Tall and lithe, with skin that seemed to shimmer like liquid mercury in the fading light. The alien raised 4-fingered hands in what Raven recognized as a universal gesture of peace. Its features were striking, almost human-like, but with an otherworldly beauty that made her breath catch. Large, iridescent eyes studied her with equal fascination. "You are injured," the alien said in perfect English, surprising Raven. "Please, allow me to help. You speak my language." Raven kept her rifle lowered but ready. "How?" "We have been studying your transmissions for some time," the alien replied. "I am Kaon, Crown Prince of the Astrine people. And you are very far from home, Earth Warrior." Raven weighed her options. Her suit's power was failing, she was injured, and she had no idea how long it would take for a rescue team to find her, if they even could. The alien, Kaon, seemed peaceful enough, and his knowledge of English suggested an advanced civilization. "Commander Raven Walsh, Earth Fleet Marines," she finally said. "I don't suppose you have a way to contact Earth." "Direct communication would be complicated," Kaon said, a shadow passing across his features. "Our world is in the midst of some internal difficulties, but I can offer you sanctuary while we work to repair your vessel." As if to emphasize the urgency of his offer, a distant roar echoed through the crystal forest. Kaon's expression tightened. "The Nightwalkers will be hunting soon. We must reach the city before dark." Raven had survived enough hostile planets to know when to set aside caution for practical necessity. She gathered what supplies she could salvage from the wreck and followed Kaon into the forest. As they walked, she noticed a certain tension in his movements, a warrior's awareness that spoke of experience with conflict. "These internal difficulties you mentioned," Raven said as they navigated the crystal maze. "Would they have anything to do with the energy signature that disabled my ship?" Kaon's step faltered slightly. "You are perceptive, Commander. Yes, the Rebel faction has been experimenting with weapons that disrupt advanced technology. They seek to overthrow the existing order, regardless of the cost to our people." The revelation that she had crashed into the middle of a civil war did nothing to improve Raven's mood. But as they crested a hill, all thoughts of politics fell away. Before them stood a city that defied imagination. Massive spires of crystal and light rose into the darkening sky, their surfaces reflecting the last rays of the setting sun like countless diamonds. "Welcome to Astrea Prime," Kion said, a note of pride in his voice despite the wariness she detected beneath. "Here, at least, you will be safe." As they descended toward the city, Raven noticed how the other Astrines they passed bowed to Kion while casting curious glances at her. There was something in their deference that spoke of more than mere respect for royalty. They looked to him as a leader, someone who carried a heavy burden. "You said you're the crown prince," Raven ventured. "But there's something more, isn't there?" Kion was quiet for a long moment as they walked through the city's crystalline streets. "I was married once," he finally said. "My wife was a brilliant diplomat who believed peace was possible between all factions. The rebels proved her wrong with an assassination that plunged our world into open civil war." The pain in his voice was raw, universal. A reminder that some emotions transcended species. Raven found herself wanting to offer comfort but unsure how. Instead, she focused on more practical matters. "How can I help while I'm here? I won't sit idle while you offer me sanctuary." Kion turned to her, his iridescent eyes seeming to peer into her soul. "You are a warrior like me. Perhaps the stars brought you here for a reason, Commander Walsh. We shall see." As night fell over Astrea Prime and the crystal spires began to glow with their own inner light, Raven couldn't shake the feeling that her crash landing was more than simple misfortune. Something larger was unfolding, and somehow she and this alien prince would be at the center of it all. The first rays of Kepler 186F's red sun found Raven on a balcony overlooking Astrea Prime. The alien city was no less breathtaking in daylight, its crystal towers refracting sunlight into countless rainbow patterns that danced across the streets below. 2 weeks had passed since her crash landing, and each day brought new wonders and new complications. "The Council requests your presence, Commander." Keon's voice came from behind her, carrying its usual mix of formality and warmth. Over the past weeks, she had learned to read the subtle shifts in his mercurial skin that betrayed his emotions. Right now, he was troubled. "Let me guess," Raven said, turning to face him. "They're still debating whether I'm a security risk, among other things." Keon moved to stand beside her at the balcony. In the morning light, his skin rippled like quicksilver. "Many believe your arrival is too convenient. The rebels grow stronger, and suddenly an advanced human warrior falls from the sky." Raven understood their suspicion. She had spent enough time in Astrea Prime to grasp the complexity of Astrine politics. The death of Keon's wife had shattered a delicate peace, dividing their society between traditionalists who sought isolation and progressives who believed in engaging with other civilizations. "They're afraid I'll upset the balance," she said. It wasn't a question. "The balance was already upset," Kion replied, his voice hardening. "My wife believed our future lay in reaching outward, not turning inward. Her death was meant to silence that vision. Instead, he trailed off, his skin darkening with emotion. Instead, it started a war," Raven finished softly. She had seen enough conflict to recognize the weight of leadership in Keon's bearing, the way he carried his people's hopes and fears like armor. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion in the streets below. A group of Astrines had gathered, their voices raised in what Raven had come to recognize as their version of song. The sound was hauntingly beautiful, but there was an edge to it that made her uneasy. "A marriage ceremony," Kion explained, though his tone suggested it was more complicated. The daughter of House Selenar joining with the son of House Vega. A political union to strengthen the traditionalist faction. And let me guess, they expect you to make a similar match. Raven watched as his skin rippled with confirmation. The thought bothered her more than it should. The Council believes a strong alliance through marriage would stabilize our society, he said. They have presented several candidates from noble houses, all politically advantageous. But not what you want, Raven observed. Their eyes met, and something electric passed between them. Over the past weeks, they had spent countless hours together, Kyan teaching her about Astrine culture, while she shared stories of Earth and her experiences among the stars. Each conversation had drawn them closer, building a connection that transcended their differences. What I want, Kyan said carefully, may not be possible. His skin shimmered with colors Raven had never seen before, and she wondered what emotions they represented. Their moment was interrupted by the arrival of a royal guard, his crystalline armor glinting in the sunlight. My prince, the council is assembled. The council chamber was a marvel of Astrine architecture, its walls formed from living crystal that pulsed with light. 12 elder Astrines sat in a semicircle, their skin patterns shifting in complex patterns that Raven had learned indicated deep discussion. At the center sat the High Elder, whose ancient eyes fixed upon her with unsettling intensity. Commander Walsh, the High Elder's voice resonated through the chamber. We have reached a decision regarding your status among us. Raven stood straight, her military bearing automatic. The sighter, Kyan tensed subtly. Your presence here is unprecedented, the High Elder continued. Some see it as an opportunity, others as a threat. But all agree that you have shown honor and respect for our ways. The Elder's skin rippled with what Raven recognized as approval. Therefore, we grant you provisional citizenship within Astria Prime, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. The announcement sent ripples of reaction through the chamber. Raven caught glimpses of both approval and dismay among the council members. But it was Kyan's reaction that drew her attention. His skin had brightened considerably, though he maintained his diplomatic composure. There is one condition, the High Elder added, and Raven's instincts warned her of what was coming. You must swear loyalty to the crown and accept a formal role within our society. Given your skills, we propose you join Prince Kyan's personal guard. The implications were clear. They wanted to keep her close, where they could watch her. But it also meant she would remain near Kyan, a prospect that both thrilled and unsettled her. I accept, Raven said firmly, with the understanding that my first duty remains to Earth and its principles. As it should be, Kyan spoke up, surprising the council. Commander Walsh's loyalty to her own people is precisely what makes her valuable to ours. She understands duty, honor, and sacrifice. The rest of the session passed in a blur of formal procedures and traditional rites. By the time they emerged from the council chamber, the red sun was high overhead, bathing the city in its otherworldly light. That went better than expected, Raven said as they walked through the palace corridors. Perhaps, Kyan replied, but his skin had darkened again. But it has also complicated matters. The traditionalists will see this as further proof that I am unfit to lead. They believe my grief for my wife has clouded my judgment, made me too eager to embrace outside influences. Raven stopped walking, turning to face him. Is that what you believe? I believe, Kyan said slowly, his eyes meeting hers, that sometimes the stars guide us to exactly where we need to be, even if that place defies tradition. His hand moved as if to touch her face, but stopped just short. You should rest, Commander. Tomorrow, your real training begins. As Raven watched him walk away, she couldn't help but think that they were both orbiting around something inevitable, like binary stars drawn together by forces beyond their control. The question was whether their convergence would bring light or destruction to both their worlds. A month into Raven's new role as Royal Guard, the attack came. The rebels struck during the Festival of Lights, when Astrea Prime's defenses were focused on managing the crowds that filled the crystal streets. The first explosion shattered the peace just as dusk was falling, sending shards of crystal raining down on the celebrants below. Raven was at Kaon's side when it happened, their evening patrol interrupted by the sound of destruction. His skin flashed warning patterns she'd learned to read like second nature, even as her own combat instincts kicked in. The eastern quarter, Kaon said sharply, already moving. They're targeting the power nodes. They ran together through chaos-filled streets, their movements synchronized from weeks of training together. Raven had mastered the basics of Astrian combat, blending it with her marine tactics to create something entirely new. Now, as rebels emerged from the shadows, that hybrid fighting style proved devastatingly effective. "Your human pet fights well, Prince Kaon," a voice called out from above. A figure stepped forward on a crystalline bridge, his skin patterns radiating hatred and disgust. "But she cannot save you from your own weakness." "Vex," Kaon's voice was cold. "I should have known you'd choose a celebration of unity to spread more division." The rebel leader's laugh was harsh. "Unity? You speak of unity while you embrace an alien into our most sacred institutions. Your wife's death should have taught you the price of such foolish ideals." Raven saw Kaon's skin darken with grief and rage, but before either of them could react, more explosions rocked the city. The crystal bridge beneath Vex's feet remained intact. He planned this well. "The people will see now," Vex declared, "how their prince abandons tradition for alien temptations. How he would rather save one human than protect his own." His words cut off as Raven's plasma bolt struck the bridge's support structure. The crystal crackled and shattered, sending Vex tumbling. He caught himself on a lower level, but the distraction was enough. Kaon's guard units were already moving into position, coordinating with the city's defenders. "I didn't abandon anything," Kaon said quietly, his voice carrying despite the chaos. "I chose to grow stronger, to learn new ways of protecting what matters." His eyes met Raven's. "And I am not alone." The battle that followed would be remembered in Astrian songs for generations. Raven and Kaon fought back to back, her earthed weapons complementing his crystal blade. They moved like dancers through the combat, each anticipating the other's needs without words. When rebels threatened civilians, they were there. When critical infrastructure came under attack, they defended it. But it was in a quiet moment, as they caught their breath between skirmishes, that everything changed. "Raven," Kaon said, using her first name for the first time. His skin was swirling with colors she'd never seen before. "If we survive this night, there is something I must ask you." "We'll survive," she promised, her heart racing for more than just combat. "Whatever you need to ask, I'll answer." The fighting lasted until dawn. When the red sun finally rose over Astrea Prime, it illuminated a city scared but unbroken. The rebel attack had failed, but its political impact was just beginning. In the council chamber, still streaked with battle grime, Raven stood beside Kaon as he addressed the elders. Her presence there was unprecedented, but after the night's events, no one dared object. "The old ways have their place," Kaon declared, his voice ringing with authority. "But they must adapt or die. Last night proved that strength comes not from isolation, but from unity, not just among our own people, but with those who would stand beside us." He turned to Raven then, his skin shimmering with an intensity that hushed the entire chamber. "Commander Raven Walsh of Earth," he said formally, "you have fought for my people as if they were your own. You have shown wisdom in our customs, while teaching us new ways to grow stronger. I ask you now, before the Council and the stars themselves, will you join your life with mine? Will you help me lead our people into a future that bridges our worlds?" The chamber erupted in chaos. Traditionalists shouted objections while progressives called for order. But Raven heard none of it. She was lost in Kaon's eyes, seeing there not just love, but a vision of something greater than either of them. "Your wife," she said softly. "She believed in reaching outward." "She believed in following the heart's truth," Kaon replied. "As do I." Raven thought of Earth, of her duty to her own people. But she also thought of the past months, of learning to read the colors in Kaon's skin like poetry, of fighting beside him, of building something new in this crystal city beneath an alien sun. "Yes," she said, her voice clear and strong. "Not just for us, but for everything we could build together." The council chamber fell silent. In that moment, both Raven and Kaon knew their real battle was just beginning. Their love would have to be strong enough to unite not just two hearts, but two civilizations. Outside, the crystal spires of Astrea Prime caught the morning light, transforming the scars of battle into prisms of possibility. The weeks following Kaon and Raven's engagement brought both triumph and tribulation to Astrea Prime. While many celebrated the unprecedented union, others plotted in shadows deeper than space itself. Vex's failed attack had only driven the opposition underground, where it festered like a wound in the Crystal City's heart. The warning came too late. During a diplomatic function, masked attackers struck with precision, using technology that disabled both Raven's Earth weapons and Astrian defenses. She fought back with bare hands, but a neural disruptor separated her from Kaon. The last thing she saw was his desperate attempt to reach her, his skin flashing colors of rage and fear. They took her to the Darklands, where Astrea Prime's crystal forests gave way to obsidian plains. Here, among the ruins of ancient Astrian civilizations, the traditionalists made their ultimate stand. Their leader, Elder Nixus, kept Raven in a containment field that nullified all technology. "You've corrupted our future, King," Nixus said, her skin patterns showing disgust. "We offer you one chance. Reject the engagement publicly. Return to Earth, never return." But they had underestimated what Earth's finest were made of. "Your prince chose me," Raven replied, "not for what I am, but for what we could become together." Days passed in captivity, each bringing new attempts to break her resolve. Yet Raven's defiance only grew stronger. She learned their routines, studied their weaknesses, and waited. She knew Kaon would come, not because she needed rescue, but because they were stronger together. When the liberation came, it wasn't just Kaon who arrived, but a united force. Progressive Astrians fought alongside a contingent of Earth Marines, alerted by Raven's long-overdue check-ins. The battle for Astrea's future played out across the obsidian plains, crystal weapons flashing alongside Earth plasma rifles. The final confrontation took place in an ancient temple, where Raven had already freed herself and was fighting alongside her liberators. When she and Kaon reunited, their combat styles merged perfectly, becoming a dance of Earth's strength and Astrian grace that overwhelmed their opponents. Elder Nixus, seeing her cause lost, attempted one final desperate act, activating a doomsday device meant to destabilize the planet's crystal core. In that moment, it was neither Earth technology nor Astrian power that saved them, but the combination of both. Raven's knowledge of Earth demolitions and Keon's understanding of crystal harmonics allowed them to diffuse the device together. Standing in the aftermath, surrounded by the glow of dawn breaking over the obsidian plains, Keon took Raven's hand. His skin rippled with colors that needed no translation: love, hope, and possibility. Their wedding united not just two hearts, but two civilizations. The ceremony blended Earth and Astrian traditions, creating something entirely new. Representatives from both worlds attended, marking the beginning of official diplomatic relations. The crystal spires of Astrea Prime were matched by the sleek lines of Earthships in orbit, a visual symbol of their people's new connection. Years later, historians would mark this as the moment when both civilizations truly began to reach for the stars together. The children of both worlds grew up hearing the story of the Earth Warrior and the Astrian Prince, who proved that love could bridge the void between stars. As for Raven and Keon, they led their people into an era of unprecedented growth and discovery. Their union became a symbol of what was possible when fear gave way to hope, when tradition embraced innovation, and when love dared to reach across the stars themselves. In quiet moments, they would stand on their balcony overlooking the city, watching Earth's ships dance with Astrian vessels against the backdrop of endless stars. Keon's skin would shimmer with joy as Raven leaned against him, both of them knowing that their greatest adventure had been finding each other. "The stars brought us together," Keon would say, his skin glowing with the colors of love. "No," Raven would reply, smiling. "We chose each other. The stars just showed us the way." And in the crystal city below, new stories were already beginning, as humanity and the Astrians wrote their shared future among the stars. The end.